Okay, OBD2 trouble codes you're gonna need to be familiar with. You got confirmed codes. You got confirmed codes. A one trip failure is an A code, meaning that as soon as the problem is there, it sets the light. They gotta be either a severe misfire, a severe air relation problem, opening a shorted circuit. As soon as it sees it, it turns the light on. It's called a one trip failure, a type A code. A two trip failure, right? It's a type B code. Most codes are type B codes because they have a first pending code. What that means, it will fail the first trip, set a pending code. If the problem reoccurs again, it turns on the light. That's a type B code. And again, most codes are type B. Type B, because you can't have every code turned on every time it sees something. I'm sorry, you can't have the light turning on every time it sees a code. So they want to make sure that the code is legitimate. So most codes are type B, unless it's something really severe, like a misfire, air fuel, open short circuit. That would be a type A code. Turn the light on right away. A type B has a pending code. It has to fail one time first, set a pending code. If a problem reoccurs, the light comes on. That's a type B. Then you got permanent codes, like only can be cleared by the PCM. Clear codes will turn out the light, but the code will still be in memory. Here's a type A code again. A serious failure, drivability concerns, usually requires only a one trip to turn that light on. A one trip failure to turn that light on. A B, less critical, emissions requires two trips, meaning, like I said earlier, it's going to set a pending code first. C and D codes are not emission related. A trip, you heard me say the word trip. A trip is not like you think. You take your car, drive it to the supermarket, and come back, and it's a trip. No. A trip has certain enable criteria for each monitor to run, and every code has a monitor. Certain criteria for that monitor to run, and every code has a criteria for the monitor to run. When all the criteria has been met, a diagnostic test is performed. So, for instance, catalytic converter. For that monitor to run, the car has to be running at 55 miles an hour for like 3 to 5 minutes, steady throttle. Once that criteria is met, the monitor will go out and test the cat to see if it's working. So anytime you hear the term monitor running, it means it's testing that particular emission control component to see if it's working. It could be CAT, EGR, O2, EBAT, whatever it is. Every emission control component has a enable criteria and a monitor to test that circuit. Now testing, rationality. Here's rationality. Somebody takes the thermostat out their car. This car been driving, I've been running for a half an hour, but yet the coolant temperature is not within range at a certain amount of time. Rationally, it makes no sense. If it sees it twice, two trip failure, turns on the light. Normality means it's not in range, either open or shorted, high or low voltage. It's not normal. What's the criteria? A set of conditions to be met before the test is performed. Like I said earlier, for a EVAP system, if one of the criteria for the EVAP system, it got to be a quarter. The gas fuel level, it has to be between a quarter of a tank and 3/4 of a tank. That's one of the criteria for that monitor will run. And sometimes it got to sit for 6 to 8 hours also. That's a criteria. EGR may be drive the car at 55 miles an hour with 3 to 5 minutes. D cell don't hit the brakes. That might be a criteria for the monitor to run. Every emission component has a criteria to run that monitor. Temperature, time, speed, and load. It depends on what the manufacturer set up for it. All codes have a criteria. Normality. A circuit is out of range. It says the range is 0.5 to 4.5 volts. And the computer does not see that, either seeing 0 or 5. That's out of range. You can set a code for that. Rationality, a comprehensive look at a performance in relationship to other sensors. Here's another one. You're driving down the freeway. The TPS says the car is at idle with a low voltage reading. The mass airflow, RPM, speed, mass airflow is saying that the car is 55 miles on the freeway. But the TPS says it's sitting still. That's not rational. It turns on the light. You will see it twice. Remember, it's probably a two-trip failure also. History of diagnostics. No self-diagnostics. The OBD1 had no self-diagnostics. Trouble codes are very limited. Data stream was limited. On OBD2, OBD2 is self-diagnostics. It does its own diagnosing. It's a it's like a self-smog. It's diagnosing itself while it's driving. It was mandated in 1996. The terms were standardized. Code requirements had to be met. Diagnostic requirements had to be the same across the board. Well, on the generic side anyway, just like the codes. On the generic side, they're all the same. And it had to have sensor monitoring. Okay, that's a basic overview of OBD2. You need to understand those terms because you're going to have information like this on the test. You need to understand it for the test. Have any questions? Hit me up in class. Thanks.